Hello, this is Laurie Sand. Today this is a short tutorial on the Tunisian Bridal Veil Stitch pattern. I'm going to be working with Lion Brand's Mandala Watercolors yarn, which is sort of a slightly bulkier yarn, single ply, and a 10mm Afghan hook, which you probably already know is the type that has a long cable, or you can use the kind that's just almost like a long knitting needle with like a pin at the end. So to start out, you're going to chain some multiple of 4. Just like you usually do with making a loop and then make the chain. The nice thing with Tunisian crochet is that the number of chains you have in your beginning chain is actually going to be equal to the number of stitches that you have. Seven, 8, I think I'm going to do 16, but you can do any multiple of 4. So the first row of Tunisian crochet is always going to be what we call the foundation row, where you're just basically going across and picking up a loop in each chain. You're going to, of course, skip the first chain because that would just undo it. So the second chain from the hook, you will bring up a loop, and then in each chain across. Once you have all of your loops drawn up for your foundation row, there's kind of that special stitch at the end, which I refer to as the forward pass selvage stitch, where you simply chain 1. So you see how I've created this last stitch of the foundation row. And then for the rest of the return pass, you just yarn over and draw through 2 of the loops on your hook until only 1 loop remains. So far this has just been like normal, traditional Tunisian crochet. So the next step, take note that the first stitch of every round is actually just going to be this loop that's left on the hook. You don't have to do anything to work the first stitch, so bear that in mind. And then for this particular stitch pattern, we're going to do 1 Tunisian simple stitch on the edge, and then we're going to do a Tunisian full stitch before the next stitch. So here is your next stitch, here's the space before it. We're going to insert the hook through that space, yarn over, and draw up a loop in the space. It's going to create a little bit of a hole, but not as much of a hole as if you did a yarn over. And then we're actually going to work into that next stitch with a Tunisian simple stitch, and then another full stitch before the next stitch. So we have just added 2 new stitches. So to even that out, what we're going to do next is Tunisian crochet 3 together. So for the next 3 stitches, we're going to insert under this vertical bar, yarn over, and draw up a loop. And now we've decreased 2 stitches so that they even out. And then you just repeat that across. Now whatever number of stitches you have, you just repeat across to the last 2 stitches. So we're going to be ending on that Tunisian simple stitch 3 decrease. And then we're left with 2 stitches. One is a regular old stitch, and then the last is our selvage stitch. So we're just going to do a Tunisian simple stitch, and then our selvage stitch, which is worked into the chain 1 that you created. You can kind of look at it edge on. You sort of have 2 loops here. I like to work into that, just like this. So when you've inserted your hooks, you have 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull 1 up, and then chain 1 to create a new selvage stitch. And then work the return pass as usual. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook. I apologize if you can hear my kids giggling maniacally in the background. I believe they're having some kind of PvP battle on Minecraft with each other. Alright, so that's row 1 of the pattern. So to make the bridal veil stitch, the decreases are going to be offset a little bit. So for the next row, obviously our first stitch is just this loop. This next stitch is a Tunisian simple stitch. And then we're going to work that 3 together decrease. This way, under 3 loops, yarn over and draw up a loop. Then the full stitch. So you identify, and it becomes easier to follow the pattern once it's kind of established. So you can kind of see here that if you had a decrease in the previous row, you're going to be working full stitches on either side in the next row. So full stitch, simple stitch, full stitch, followed by that 3 together decrease, and then repeat across. And then so the last 2 stitches is going to be simple stitch and that selvage stitch I told you about. Then chain 1 and yarn over and pull through 2 loops until only 1 loop remains. Now, once you have your piece the size that you want, you're going to want to finish off with a row of single crochet. Now, typically, when I finish off with a row of single crochet, I just go straight across with single crochet. But I, with this particular stitch pattern, want to go in pattern when I'm essentially binding off. And I'll show you what that looks like. So first of all, just like with any row of single crochet, you're going to chain 1 to start your row. And I'm going to insert my hook under the vertical bar of this stitch below to make sure I have a single crochet for every stitch in the row. Yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Just a standard single crochet. And then again for the next one, standard single crochet. But then, you see, if I was continuing with the pattern, I would be doing a full stitch, a single simple stitch, and a full stitch again. So I'm essentially going to do that with single crochet as well. So I'm going to insert into that space and make a single crochet, insert into the stitch and make a single crochet, and then insert into the space again to make a single crochet. And then I'm also going to do my decrease with single crochet under all these bars, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then finish out the single crochet stitch. And I just continue that across, maintaining the pattern as I single crochet across. I think that just makes it look a lot neater and a lot more consistent. You can, of course, just go across and single crochet across, but I don't think it looks as nice. And again, for this selvage stitch, you're going to insert it so that you have these 2 bars, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then finish your stitch. So that's really all there is to it, to the Tunisian bridal veil stitch. I think it just kind of is an interesting texture that's sort of different than a lot of Tunisian crochet. And it kind of, here's an earlier finished piece that's already been blocked. You can see that it's still fairly structured. It's not floppy, but it has pretty good drape. I think this is a great stitch pattern for bulky cardigans and sweaters, and maybe even a shawl. I think it would be appropriate for. It's just kind of fun. And of course, with all Tunisian crochet, there's an obvious wrong side that doesn't show the pattern as well. But I think that this also looks interesting with the bridal veil stitch. You can see it has almost like a honeycomb quality that I think is kind of interesting. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed learning about this interesting new stitch. If you have any questions, drop comments below or email me directly, and have a great day. Thanks.